Hi, welcome to Getaway Day. I'm Gautam, joined by Mason, and today we're going to be getting into some hot and cold starts around Major League Baseball this early season. Um, and before we do that, we're also going to talk a little this week in baseball, bringing back a popular segment, if I do say so myself, from last year. And we've also got a listener question that we're going to get to at the end. So, how are you doing today, Mason?
I am doing great. It is fill in day of week, Tuesday, Wednesday. I don't remember, honestly.
It's
Um
Wednesday, Getaway Day.
Wednesday. Right. Yeah, it's Wednesday. It's been a good week so far. Just kind of chilling. It's finally starting to warm up again. So I'm doing well. How are you?
I am also doing well, and watching this Cubs game, and it's raining really, really hard there. So they're not quite getting the spring that you are, but hopefully we'll be there soon.
Yeah, it's just a matter of time now. We're about to hit May, so we should be getting May flowers, hopefully.
That sounds
So
good to me.
yeah, but no, so it's warming up here, but you know what is still pretty cold?
What?
Joe Madden's baseball decision making.
Yes, indeed. So if you haven't heard about what happened over this past weekend with the Angels and the Rangers playing a series, um, I'll set up the scenario here, and then you can respond to it. So the Angels are down 3-2 in the fourth inning of a game. Um, they had the lead coming into this inning, but Reed Detmers got into a little bit of trouble. He gave up a few runs, and he gets removed from the game. There's a runner on first and third, and Joe Madden brings in right-handed reliever Austin Warren. This guy's a really young pitcher. Last year he was a rookie. He's pitched maybe 20 games in his career. Pretty solid pitcher. He's done well so far in his very limited time at the major league level. He comes in and he immediately walks Marcus Simeon on four pitches to load the bases. The next move is the key move in in the whole situation. Joe Madden puts up the four fingers and he walks Corey Seager intentionally with the bases loaded down a run to put them down by 2 runs at this point. The next batter, Mitch Garver, hits a sac fly, and basically the Angels won the game anyways. They somehow came back to win this game, but this decision making is really unheard of. It's never really happened like this in history. So, what do you think about Joe Madden's decision making here?
It broke my brain. Um, why? I get Corey Seager is incredibly ridiculously good. He's the scariest hitter on that lineup, quite frankly. And you have a rookie pitcher who isn't an insane strikeout guy. And Corey Seager doesn't really strike out.
And
And
I
I
understand the platoon advantage, like a right-handed pitcher facing the left-handed seeker. It makes sense. You maybe want to work carefully to him, but to actually just let him go in the fourth inning of a game, that's the part that gets me. It's like this has happened where players have been walked with the bases loaded. The last time it actually happened was Barry Bonds in 2008.
and it happened a couple times that same season to Barry Bonds,
And
didn't it?
it's happened 2 times to Bonds ever. It's happened now 6 times in the history of baseball, but it's always happened in the later innings. It's always happened in the eighth or ninth inning in a really close game. And this situation is completely different because you've got half the game left to play, and you're basically Joe Madden. He wasn't thinking ahead at all. If he should have been able to see the scenario where Simeon either got hit or walked. Like, it's like he didn't even think one batter ahead. It doesn't make
Yeah.
any sense.
Yeah, no, it really doesn't. And the other thing with it is yeah, Garver is not Seager, but
But
I
he's
would
not a
be
pitcher, and he's not like a terrible hitter at
yeah,
all.
he's a really good hitter. Like,
And there was one out in the inning.
yeah. Like what the
Yeah,
heck?
So
And
from no angle
mathematically
does
it
this make any sense.
mathematically it doesn't make sense either. I'm reading. I've got an article from Fangraphs here. Ben Clemens on Fangraphs. The title of the article, very straightforward. Don't intentionally walk anyone with the bases loaded. That's the title of the article, and it goes through and he's talking about like doing a win probability estimate and stuff with just like generic rosters. They would have expected Texas in that situation to score another 1.5 runs that inning, like on average, and had a 77% chance to win the game. By intentionally walking Seager, well, and that was with generic rosters. It's actually higher than that whenever you factor in like the actual players being better than average. It goes up to 1.75 runs on average and about an 80% win percentage expectancy for Texas. Walking Seager guarantees they get a run. So instead of there being like a 0.2 runs attributed to his plate appearance and the expectancy, you're guaranteeing it's 1 run. Like, he could have struck out. He could have grounded out. You throw home and get the force out there and stop a run from scoring. Like, there's other things that could happen. But instead, you just willingly give up a run to go down 5-3. And then still have Garver coming up next, who is an above average hitter. So it doesn't make the odds work any better.
No.
So
yeah, there's no defending this decision from a tactical perspective, but what did Joe Madden have to say to defend his decision?
I gotta scroll back down to it because I scrolled away. He said he did it, quote, just to stir up the group, quite frankly. End quote. You can't like break a phone. Like Carlos Zambrano did it all the time. It got people fired up. Like,
yeah, it's funny. It's just funny because the reason why it's funny is because when Joe Madden was with the Rays, he was thought of as a guy that was really on the forefront of analytics, using data and things like that to make decisions, not just making like gut feel calls or like the traditional baseball decision. And now he's kind of like come full circle where he's the he's like on the back of making like smart decisions. He just makes like weird ones that make no sense and aren't backed up by anything. Really.
Yeah, when Tony La Russa is more likely to make a decision based on analytics than Joe Madden, you know that something's just like they're past their prime.
Yeah. But it is hilarious though, and
they still won the game. And I don't know how, but
that's the part that we need to remember, that just because they won the game does not make it a good decision. Like, you got to look at the process, and the process was just awful in this situation.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of baseball fans had a lot of fun discussing this one, and that's at least entertaining and fun.
I'm not sure I have fun so much as I have a headache.
Crazy old Joe, man. Well, we'll see. I mean, he's also a guy that's been criticized for his tactical decisions in the past. In the World Series with the Cubs, he made a lot of decisions that were not that great, and he ended up lucking out and winning those games. Like, who knows?
He accidentally got a rain delay in Game 7.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we'll see if that might bite the Angels if they do end up playing some playoff games this year. Like, I don't know. Joe's the wild card. You never know what that man's going to do.
Yeah, I'm not sure that man knows what he's going to do.
No, he doesn't. Like, he didn't know when he brought Austin Warren that he was going to do an intentional walk, the bases loaded. But okay, enough of that. Let's talk about some teams that have gotten off to really hot and really not hot starts this season. The first is the Rockies, and the reason I bring them up is because things could definitely turn for them. This might be the last week of the season that we could say that they're really hot, but they're 8-4 to start the year. They've played all but two of their games at Coors Field, so that's probably part of it. But before today, their bullpen has been uncharacteristically good for them. Fourth best ERA in the league for their bullpen, and you know, all the hitters that they brought in seem like they're actually playing really well. Chris Bryant, Randall Grichuk, and then they extended one of their own in Kyle Freeland, getting
It was
what, he
like,
got 5 years,
yeah, it was like 5 years, 84 million,
64, I think.
64.
Yeah, but
I guess I can.
basically the only way they can kind of get pitchers are to develop their own and then extend them, which now they've done with both Freeland and Antonio Sensatella. So
Okay, so Freeland, 5 years, 64 and a half with a vesting option for a sixth year. And he can opt out after year 3 if he's in the top 5 in Cy Young in 2022 or 2023. So basically, there's no opt out for Kyle Freeland.
good luck, Kyle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I still think he's the pitcher that makes the least amount of sense in their entire rotation.
Yeah, I think he's a fine pitcher. Like,
oh, he's a fine pitcher. He just doesn't make sense for them.
Yeah, he's had some success there though, so maybe he can get it back. His first year was really good. But overall, on the Rockies, is there actually a chance they could compete? Because if they play the way they have, it's possible.
I mean, yeah, if they keep playing the way they have, that, let's see, the division right now, basically, and I mean, we're only 11 games in, 14 games if you're San Diego. I don't know how they've played 14 already, but sure. But yeah, so we're 11 games in, so no team is out of it, obviously. You could infer that Arizona's out of it. But if Colorado keeps playing the way they are, San Diego, they've still not got all their guys back. They're not getting Tatis back for a while, and he's the guy that makes that team click. Trent Grisham's not had the best start yet. They've got just a lot of guys, really, and I don't know if they know who is their starters at mid-season or whatever based on who's on the roster now. They've been throwing out CJ Abrams a little bit, trying to get him to break through. Kim Ha-sung over at short. Is Cronenworth playing second?
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's doing okay. He's not doing phenomenally to start the year.
Yeah.
Hosmer is doing fantastic.
Burning worms, yeah. A lot of ground balls.
Yeah.
Getting through.
Pretty much. But his numbers look good right now. But
getting back to the Rockies though, I think the path for them to be competitive is kind of do what they did last year at home, which is play really well, win a lot of home games. They did that last year, and they probably can do that again this year because they're always successful at Coors Field. They usually build their team in a way that they have that advantage, and they won almost 60% of their games at home last year. They were awful on the road. They won 26 games on the road last year. So if they even improve that by like 10 games and then play about the same at home, then you're talking about a roughly 85 win team. Yeah. That's a team that can probably be on the borderline of the playoffs with the expanded playoff situation for this year.
Now, so I guess the point that I never actually finished because I did my whole rambling thing with San Diego there is Colorado can compete basically if that San Diego team never finds their footing. It opens up a lot of doors. Now, in Colorado's, or looking at their record here, we actually have no idea what this team is going to do on the road because they've only played 2 games on the road in their first 12 games.
Exactly.
So they're 6-4 at home. They are 2-0 on the road so far, but
it's the Rangers.
Yeah, and that's another team that like could be great, could struggle. We don't really know. It's going to take a while for them to fully gel and us to know who they are. So this probably very likely is just a fluky start just because they're at home basically the whole
Yeah,
time.
probably.
But it's definitely an intriguing one to watch, though.
Yeah, and they've had some really standout performances. CJ Cron leads the majors in home runs. He's got 6 already. Um, Connor Joe has been incredible for them, playing a whole bunch of positions. And Chris Bryant's hitting 375. Like they're pretty much getting exactly what they would be wanting from the offense. And the pitching's been just good enough at Coors Field to win enough games.
Well, and they're also getting production from their catching position, which not many teams do really. Like get like substantial production, but Elias Diaz so far I think has only swung and missed at like one pitch in the strike zone, maybe.
Pretty good, yeah.
Like he's locked in right now. And he's a guy that like he came from Pittsburgh a while ago and wasn't really good there, and I think it's just people thought he was a backup catcher, and that was what he was going to kind of peak out at. But here he is starting for Colorado, and he's doing pretty good here to start 22. So,
okay, switching gears though, on the downside, really struggling are the Cincinnati Reds. They dropped another game today, finishing off. They got swept by the Padres, and they're now 2-11. And nothing is going right for this team. Like offensively, pitching wise, they're bottom tier in both phases of the game there, and none of their players are really doing much except for the only bright spot really has been Hunter Green at this point, who's been really impressive in his first 2 starts. So that's something to look forward to the future for. But right now, this team is just getting all the bad luck in the world. Like just yesterday, Mike Moustakas, Jonathan India got moved to the IL. They've had Nick Senzel being sick and missing a bunch of games. Tyler Naquin's on the COVID IL right now. Tyler Stevenson got run into at home plate by Luke Voigt. You never want that to happen. And now he's on the concussion IL. And Joey Votto is hitting under 150. So not great.
yeah. No, getting hit by Luke Voigt would be like getting hit by Albert when he was running from first to home yesterday on that Tommy Edman triple. He'd break a concrete wall. Like that man
Yeah.
is just pure muscle. Not fast, but oh my god, would that hurt?
Yeah. And it was kind of a very awkward looking slide. I don't think it was meant to be like a dirty slide or anything, but he kind of like put his hands up and just hit Stevenson in the head. So that could not have felt great.
Yeah, no.
But I don't know. Like, is this Reds team just doomed? Are they just never going to recover from this? Like, they've had a start like this in a recent year that I remember, where they just started incredibly poorly, and
Wasn't
then
it
they
last
just
year?
never. I think it might have been last year, or was it 19?
Mm,
Maybe it was both. Very
it,
well could have
it
been.
probably was both. Let's be
Yeah.
real.
So
Um,
even if they'll definitely play better than this, but it's going to be hard. Like you're really putting yourself at a disadvantage when you start 2-11.
Now, in their defense, they did have a 4-game series against the Dodgers, which you would expect the Dodgers to win that series. So that's 3 losses right there. If you expect the Dodgers to win the series, not necessarily sweep. They played 4 games against Atlanta,
Yeah,
which you
so
would
they've
expect
played tough
Atlanta to
teams. Yeah,
split that, and they did. So there's 2 more losses there. So you're at 5. So really, the thing that gets them to where they are that makes you go, are they that bad? Is losing both games of a 2-game series versus Cleveland, and getting swept in a 3-game series in San Diego. So San Diego is definitely a better team, but I don't know. I would have expected the Reds to take at least one of those. So looking at their schedule, I would really only be expecting like 4-9 at best right now anyway.
4-9 just feels so much better than 2-11, though.
Well, it
Maybe that's
does.
just me.
Well, no, you're right, but like it's also not that much different just due to the small
Yeah.
sample size. Like,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah, you're
win
right.
percentage is a huge difference there. But I don't know. I
Yeah.
still don't have a whole lot of hope for that team
No, and this
in
start does
general.
nothing to soothe those, fears.
No. And you start if you're the Reds, you start to worry a little bit because the team that you thought, yeah, we're definitely better than them, in Pittsburgh is 5-7. And I don't think they've been swept yet. I'm checking to make sure oh no, they did. They just got swept by Milwaukee,
Or the
that
Brewers, yeah.
finished up today.
Yeah.
But that's a considerably better start. I mean,
Yeah, no doubt.
4 games against St. Louis that or sorry, 3 because there was a rain out. They did manage to win 1. They won 1 of 2 against the Cubs, 3 of 4 against Washington. Like, they've had an easier schedule than Cincinnati for sure.
Yeah, no doubt.
But they've also played some pretty solid ball during those games too. So yeah, if I were the Reds or a Reds fan, I would be a little scared right now.
Yeah. Okay. So a couple other notes here. A couple of retirements that were announced this week. Jake Arrieta, Tony Watson, both veteran pitchers that kind of are retiring now. So we're going to give them a moment of recognition, I guess.
I did see Jake Arrieta is retired from professional ball, but he is still pitching as like the parent pitcher for his 9-year-old's little league team.
Uh-oh.
And he accidentally struck out like 5 9-year-olds because they only get to face 5 pitches, and he's too good to pitch to 9-year-olds. So
Yeah.
he struck out 5.
Accidentally striking people out was what he was doing
He
in
also
2015 and 2016.
He also hit one.
Oh, that happens too.
When he said that in the league they're in, hit by pitches, you don't go to first. You just go back to the dugout. So he just pegged a 9-year-old and they just went back and sat on the bench. It's like, that is sad.
Yeah, but with Arrieta, I think everyone's kind of mentioned this, but I'll mention it again that his stretch there in 2015 was pretty much one of the greatest, arguably the greatest stretch of half season for any pitcher ever, where he just dominated, and it really carried over into the first half of 2016 as well. There was a 30 start period where he had like a 25-1 record with like a 1 ERA or something ridiculous, or
Yeah.
less than that, I think.
The only like half season stretch that I can think of that comes even close is DeGrom last year at the beginning of the year. Like, his first half was dominant, but Arrieta was something else in 15, 16. So he did win the Cy Young that year in 15. So
Yep.
Fantastic career. So kudos to him. One other note that I wanted to mention. So we're now 2 seasons removed from the COVID season, but it's not gone. I know we've talked about there being some teams that are gonna maybe not have some players when they go up to Toronto because you do have to be vaccinated to enter the country of Canada. But we're starting to see some mini COVID breakouts amongst some teams. Boston has a couple players that have COVID right now, or had it here this week. Same with Oakland. And then today, Seattle actually had... Seattle actually had Scott Service. Sorry, I'm trying to think of the people now. Scott Service, the bench coach, who I don't know his name, and the Paul Sewald all go down on the COVID IL today. So
Yeah, and then Cleveland also had a number of players that got placed on the COVID IL this morning too. So
mm. Oh yeah, because that was what Naylor.
I don't think it was Naylor.
Was it not Naylor?
It was Owen Miller and I
That,
can't remember who.
that's
Cal
what I was thinking.
Quantrill, a couple other guys, but yeah, it's definitely still around and it's affecting things. So
Yeah. So hopefully they can get that under control. But I mean, we're now in year 3, so I guess we'll see.
yeah, okay. So what do you say we move on to talking about some of these hot and cold guys?
Let's do it.
All right. So Nolan Arenado has been off to a very cold start. He has been awful this season. Oh, wait.
Worst player in baseball.
Oh, wait. He's actually hitting 433, 514, 1000 with 4 homers in 8 games. So he's doing awesome so far. And I kind of put together a couple of tables here just comparing uh, these players' performance in March and April to how they perform for that specific season, just to see what hot starts kind of lead to, and if they lead to anything. So with a guy not like Arenado, he's actually just the star player, so he kind of plays well all the time, and he's got off to a whole bunch of hot starts in his career. So this is no different than that, really. And he always ends up with really good end of season numbers and everything. So there's not a whole lot to take away from that. There, anything you want to add on Arenado?
Yeah, so I guess Arenado does. So being a superstar player, like his starts are always like average player or better in the month of April. So 100 WRC plus or higher. He has had a couple of instances where he or a couple seasons where he's gone like absolutely bonkers in the first month. His start right now is kind of looking like it's going to be one of those. Like 2016, for instance, he had a 160 WRC plus in March and April. Right now, even though we are really at only about a half a month, he's got a 277 WRC plus so far. So an absolutely phenomenal start. And I don't know, it does kind of feel like he is settling in here in year 2. So I was calling that last year when he was a little underwhelming for his his career.
I mean, yeah, that's a good point because obviously he made the switch over from Colorado to St. Louis, so different hitting environment. But WRC plus, which is a stat that we like to use on this podcast. If you're new here, it's all-encompassing offensive statistic that takes into account the different parks that they play in. So it's scaled to 100, with 100 being average and every point above being that percent above the league average. So Arenado's had 119 WRC plus for his career, 19% above average. And when he was in Colorado, it was like in the 120s or 130s basically every year. And his first year in St. Louis, it dropped down to 113. So he wasn't like really a superstar, I guess, offensively. And maybe he'll bounce back to those Colorado levels. We'll see.
Yeah, like he was still a really good player last year. I think all in all, he had like a 4 WAR, which is when you look at like WAR totals, I think 4 is considered like an all-star player.
Yeah, it's like a star, I think.
Yeah. And so still really good, but not what we're used to seeing. Now it's looking like we're seeing what we're used to with him. What do you say we talk about another guy who is on just an absolute monster tear that today, I'll just give you his numbers today. And then I'll let, I mean, you know who it is, but I'll give it a minute and see if chat here figures out who it is. His line today, 2 for 8 with a home run or a grand slam, a double, 5 RBIs, and a walk. Yeah, it
Yeah.
is definitely J Ram. Great job by Dreslin here in the chat. Um, the dude is in an unreal tear right now. But how does that compare to how he normally does in March and April?
Yeah, so he's definitely gotten off to some cooler starts before. I mean, every April and March, or March and April, was cooler than this one, I guess. But um, in like 19, that was a year that he really just was struggling a lot in the first half, and then he went crazy in the second half. But he just had a 49 WRC plus in that first month. But usually, I feel like by looking at the numbers here, he seems like a guy that is actually even hotter in the second half of the season usually. So I'm wondering, like, is this the year that there's no adjustment period for him? He just has a full amazing season and he can be like an MVP this year or win the MVP finally.
Yeah, that it'd be, I don't know, that'd be a crazy season because just like 2018 was his best season to date. And he his March April a 132 WRC plus, which was still significantly cooler than the rest of the year for him because he finished the year with a 147 and he put up 8.1 WAR that year. That is phenomenal. Um, if he doesn't have an adjustment period this year, it's gonna be definitely 2018-esque, if not nearing that 10 WAR mark. And that 10 WAR mark, that is a huge deal if you can get it. I think in recent memory, Mookie Betts and Mike Trout might be the only two that have done it.
Yeah, kind of jumping around here, but speaking of Mookie, in 2018, when he won the MVP with the Red Sox, his year-end WRC plus was 185, so just out of this world amazing. And in March and April, it was 207. So that was kind of like that sign that this season's going to be a special one. So that's kind of like what I'm seeing with Jose Ramirez here.
Yeah. Yeah, it's, I think that's a really good comparison there. And I guess staying with Mookie here, he is not
I'm
doing so
worried.
hot.
I'm gonna be honest. I'm really worried about this.
It's not the, so he's currently rocking a 55 WRC plus, which is like catcher territory, in like the defensive catcher territory.
Yeah.
Maybe a little worse than that even. Yeah. So I don't know. He's rocking a 55 WRC plus right now. I don't have his numbers pulled up here on anything else, so give me a minute. 177, 270, or sorry, 171, 277, 220 slash line. He's only got a handful of extra base hits.
Don't think he has a homer yet.
Not even a handful of extra base hits. He has two. He does not have a home run. He's only got 3 RBIs, taken 5 walks. Like, I don't know. This is just,
It's obviously
really
way
weird.
too early to make any grand statements about what kind of season he's going to have here, but it almost makes it seem like he's injured or something, or the same injuries he had last season are carrying over. He had the hip injury, he had some back issues, and he might be just trying to play through it. So last year, even when he played through his injuries and everything, he missed some time. He still ended up with a 131 WRC plus. Absolutely elite player, able to do that.
Yeah.
But
Now, in his career, he does start colder than he finishes. Just kind of in, like, obviously 2018 when he had that 207 in March, April and won the MVP, had like 11 WAR or something stupid. That one's kind of not what I'm talking about here. In 2017, he was pretty consistent around a 110 the whole season. But 15, 16, 19, 21, he finished a lot better than he started. So, like, yeah, that's probably also going to be the case now, but this looks like something different entirely to me.
Yeah, I would agree to that. But like the guy's right in his prime, right? Unless the injuries are the problem, uh, there's no reason that he can't get it back. He's too talented to be down for too long. So I'm not giving up on him. No doubt, I'm not. But
I mean, I'm
I'm
not
still
either. Heck,
keeping an eye on
my cat's named after him. I can't give up on him. I don't think I'm legally allowed to.
him. Yeah.
So,
Okay. Yeah. Talk about another player that's not quite like the stars that we have been talking about here, but he's kind of approached those star level seasons in the last few years. But the beginning of his career was not so elite. And that player is Marcus Simeon, who's with Texas for his first year of his big 7-year contract. He was a guy that was kind of around league average for 2015, 16, 17, 18, and then he had a crazy breakout in 19 with the A's. He's a guy that's kind of had numbers that are in March and April that are similar to his end of season numbers, I would say. And um, except for 2021, where he started out really slow and then he finished really hot with the Blue Jays. This year, he has barely done anything at all. It just like really rough start for Simeon. Um, Hitting 128, 190, 179. So like no power, really no on base at all.
so
It's been tough.
yeah, I'm looking at your chart here, and I looked at it, and it's like there's got to be a typo there, and there might be, or it might just be he had a good game today.
Oh yeah, I think yeah these numbers from yesterday. So
Well, actually, the number I'm looking at here is also from yesterday. Um, but like even with the typo, it ain't good. You had 8. It's
yeah,
18, but that's worse than pitchers were when we had pitchers hitting. I think I said last week when we were talking about Jackie Bradley Jr. And how bad he was last year. The Simeon start is looking like JBJ last year
I think JBJ had
altogether.
like a 59 WRC plus for the season or something like that.
Yeah, probably, but
Yeah. But yeah, I understand your point. Like it's horrible, and it's not going to continue like this, obviously. But are you concerned about Simeon?
I mean, I've kind of always been concerned about Simeon. Like he's only had the 2 really, really good hitting years, and that was 19 and 21.
Yep.
2020, obviously, throwing that out the window, but he's 30, 30 what, 30,
31.
31 years old. Um, and his, not really his rookie season, because technically he played in both 13 and 14, just only 85 games total across those 2 seasons. But when he went to Oakland and started playing full time, like age 24, 25, 26, 27, he was always right around that league average guy. And then all of a sudden at 28 years old, which is prime years to be fair, he just goes out and finds power and goes from a 10 home run guy to 30 and then 45 home run last year guy. It just, I don't know, it just felt weird to me. I just, no matter how many times in a row I watched him like just have major success, just my brain couldn't believe what my eyes were seeing there.
Yeah,
So,
I think that makes a lot of sense when you see a guy make such a drastic skills jump, and the skills are real. Like he is a much better player than he was earlier in his career, but it's also something that you're like, this really popped out of nowhere, and I'll be surprised if it sustains for like a long time, basically.
well, and with some of those numbers that inflate WRC plus, home runs being a big one.
Oh yeah, the
Um,
guy hit 45 home runs. That's like mind-boggling that Marcus
45
Simeon would
home
ever hit
runs
45 home runs in a season.
across Dunedin, very homer friendly park. Toronto, also a pretty homer friendly park.
And
Um,
Buffalo.
what?
And Buffalo.
Yeah, and Buffalo, homer friendly park.
Yeah.
Uh, and we know that the ball last year was never the same ball. Sometimes it was juice, sometimes it wasn't. So like he may have benefited from some juice ball homers. He probably got screwed by some unjuice ball homers or unjuice ball warning track flyouts. There we go as well. But I wouldn't expect 45 home runs again, meaning I don't think his WRC plus is going to reach 130 by the end of the year again, ever. Like, Texas is a pitcher friendly park, if I remember right.
Yeah, but the WRC plus again is park adjusted, so
Ah, that's
that
fair.
helps there.
That is fair. But I don't know.
Um, but yeah, he's not going to put up the same production home run wise or any of the run scoring or anything like that because he's just in a worse lineup. Um, but it's hard. It's tough because I love Marcus Simeon, one of my favorite players to watch, and I really think he's going to get it together though. Like I still believe in him.
So the one other question I have is who has he faced pitching wise? Has it been like really, really good pitchers so far? It looks like they had 3 against Toronto,
But
which
the
is a
Angels, I know.
really good rotation. 2 against Colorado. Um, a 4-game set with the Angels. And then they are playing against Seattle this week. Game 2, I think,
But
is just starting.
tough start for them though. They just won 2 of their games so far.
Oh, dang, I didn't even realize that. Yeah, that's yikes.
Their
Not what
pitching's
you.
been awful so far.
We did predict that in the AL West preview.
Not a real out on a limb prediction, was it?
No, not at all. In fact, that was more of the trunk of the tree. But
Yes.
um, but yeah, no, I definitely expect Simeon to get a lot better here moving forward, and he'll finish the season an above average hitter. I have no doubt in my mind that he's just not going to be what he was last year. Because I mean, heck, 1 month can really hold down your numbers too. So even if he goes and like plays the rest of the year like he did last year, he's still not going to finish with similar numbers.
Yeah. And
So
I guess I'll make this point right now. So there's a lot of hyper focus by people on everyone's numbers and stuff at the beginning of the season because they change so wildly. One day you can gain, 50 points in batting average or whatever, and people are all these guys are going out there and they know their numbers and they don't want to start out badly. Like literally every player is thinking like I want to get out off to a like fast start. But the thing is, these bad stretches that players have at the beginning of the season, they happen during the middle of the season too, and the end of the season as well. And those don't get the same attention. You go 0 for 15 in the middle of the season, no one bats an eye, no one even notices it. And that even happens to the studs like Mookie Betts and Mike Trout. Like those happen all the time. We just pay so much more attention at the beginning of the season.
yeah, it's like getting off to a hot start. And I'm going to use Arenado as an example since we talked about him. Getting off to a hot start just kind of makes it so people give you a little bit of leniency if you have a bad game. Because like Arenado's been phenomenal. I think what was the number I said he was a 277 WRC plus so far this month? Well, if you looked at it yesterday, it was actually 312. He went over yesterday.
Yeah.
And so his numbers just look significantly better because he's been really good in the first 7 games and then had 1 bad game. But someone who has 3 bad games looks awful. So it's one of those that's why you want to get out to a fast start, just so people don't get in your head, basically. And you don't get in your own head.
All right. Well, our last guy that we got here to talk about is having a really rough go of it, and I'm so sad. It's Joey Votto, and guy completely changed his approach on last season, where he was going for more power. It really worked out for him quite well when he got into the groove last season, hitting like a ton of bombs, and it was it was just completely working for him. And I totally believed that those changes were going to carry over to the season, and he was going to be awesome. But maybe Joey Votto is just old now, and he's not going to recover.
Well, and so he changed his swing last year, and then this year he changed his bat. So like he's always messing with stuff too. So maybe his bat is not as beneficial as he had hoped. Maybe that's part of the problem. And as soon as he either changes back to a model closer to what he was using before, he can't get the bat that he was using before, which is why he switched. But he changed up models entirely and went with one of those hockey pucks. Maybe if he goes back to a model that's designed the same way his old bat was, maybe he fixes it. Who knows? So he changed more stuff than most people do.
Yeah, but at the same time, like I'm sure he has made those choices and he feels like those were the right things to do. So I
Yeah,
almost don't know if it's like would it be the right thing to do to just abandon ship when you've been planning this kind of change for the entire off season, for example?
probably
Like
not, but he might
it's
find that there's another adjustment he has to make in tandem.
yeah, and that's the thing about Joey Votto. He's always been a guy that's been able to make those adjustments, even when we thought he was completely washed in 2019. He came
Yeah.
back in 21 and became really good again. So
Well, and in 2019 when we thought he was washed, like he wasn't great, but he was still a solid player. Like he
no,
finished with
but
basically
but we
100
compare
WRC
it to
plus. He
we compare
had
it to what he'd done previously in his career, which was being just an awesome player,
yeah,
super stud. Yeah,
but like he finished that season, that 2019 season on a hot streak. In June he was on fire in 2019. He just had 3 bad months that dragged his numbers down too. So
yeah,
like even when he was bad, he was still good.
absolutely, yeah.
So I don't know. I'm curious to see what happens going forward with him though, because I think the Reds have played. They've only played like. Have they had any rainouts? I guess is my question. Um,
They've been on the road. They've been West Coast a lot, so I don't remember any right now. It's off the top of my head. They played 13 games already, so probably not.
yeah, probably not.
But
No, it looks like
yeah,
they got all theirs in.
and I hadn't really thought about it, but they have played really tough opponents in the Braves and then the West team. So maybe a little home cooking, a little Great American Ballpark in the summer will get things going,
Dude,
and
let's get
we'll get
that
the
right field power alley. Let's get that thing going for him.
40 bombs. Joey Votto, he can still do it.
Yes, he can. In fact, I wouldn't put it past him to put up 60 bombs still.
He's never done 40, man. That's his goal.
He's never done 40, but watch him do 60. It's Joey
Do
Votto.
it. Yeah.
I wouldn't put it past him.
Yeah. Don't put anything past that man. Okay. Yeah. So this is pretty interesting to me. So basically, what I learned is that stars are stars no matter the month for the most part. And potentially, if you do have a really hot start, it could be the sign that you're going to have an MVP season. So
Yeah.
we'll see if
And
any of these hot guys can do that.
yeah, and what I noticed is like, so yeah, stars are stars no matter what, but some stars like still start out cold for them. And so you have these guys that are going out and putting up a 20% better than the average player in the first month, and then they finish with 50% better. Like, that's still considered a cold start to me. And so you see some of these, and even if they're having a good start now, we could be looking out for something crazy. So
Okay,
all right.
yeah. And before we finish off today, we've got to address our um, fan question from Twitter, and you can send those in to us at Getaway Day Pod, and we will answer them on the podcast live.
Yeah, and you could
So,
also send them to our Facebook page or as well. So
yep, that too. So today's question comes from Stacy, and the question is: when a player gets called up from the minors and plays a game or two, how is their salary structured? Would you like to address this question?
so I believe the way it works, and you correct me if I'm wrong, is there's essentially three different contract types in baseball. There's a minor league contract where you're not on a 40-man roster, you're just on minor league teams. There's a major league contract where you're like Mike Trout, you're not going to play in the minor leagues at all. And then there are split contracts for some players who are on the 40-man. They might get called up, but they're not going to be there necessarily the whole year. And so for guys on the 40-man and have the ability to get called up, I believe they have a different salary rate depending on where they're playing that day, right? If they play in the majors, they have a major league salary per game.
That's
And
correct
same
for
thing in
those
the
split
minors.
contracts. Yeah.
So, and those split contracts, the rate for the major league contract is the major league minimum of 700 and was it now 740?
700,000. 700, right?
I thought it was 740.
Okay, 740. Whatever the minimum salary is.
Yeah.
I thought it was 700, but
We covered it a couple weeks ago in the CBA thing.
yeah. So basically,
But
you get paid prorated based on the number of days that you're on the major league roster at that major league salary rate. So if you get sent down, then you'll be making some minor league salary. Um, and I believe those actually changed with the new CBA as well, to where they're higher. If you're on the 40-man roster but you're in the minor leagues, you're gonna be making more money than you were in the past.
yeah, I think
And
it's
then,
up. Those are up to like 50 or 60, I think now. K. 50 or 60K. So definitely a
and then
substantial pay difference. You would like to be on that major league pay if you can be.
yeah,
So
exactly. So you're making major league salary every day that you're on either the active roster or you're on the major league injured list. So if you blow out your arm while you're in the major leagues when you've been first called up, you're still going to be making that major league salary while you're injured on that injured list. So that's the least benefit of being injured when you make to the majors. But
yeah,
um,
weird to say a benefit to being injured.
yeah, but I guess it could be worse if you're in the minors when you had the injury.
Yeah, but I mean, if you think about it, an injury can always be worse unless it's death.
True. But we'll see how the teams kind of use that. It's an important topic for the 2022 season because now teams are limited to just five options for players. Before, there was unlimited number of times they could send a player back down and then call them back up to the majors within a season. Now they can only send that guy down 5 times in a season. So it could change the way that teams operate.
I actually didn't think about that. That could definitely affect the like we were talking, it was Edward Olivares, right? They got called up and
Yep.
down like 19 times or 13 times or something last year.
Yeah, there's a few
Like,
guys like that, but yeah,
yeah, so like all that travel would be hard, but all that travel, he was on the major league roster and was making a substantial amount of money more. So if you can only do that 5 times and they don't keep calling you up, I guess you're kind of making less money.
yep,
So
exactly.
that's a ooh. Guess who just hit a 2-run home run in the 9th inning?
Arenado.
Arenado,
Wow, look at that.
right on cue.
Okay, well, with that, I think we're gonna wrap up today's episode. So thank you for joining us on Twitch, and thank you for supporting us. Go ahead and subscribe and follow us on our social media at Getaway Day Pod on Facebook and Twitter, YouTube, and anywhere you listen to podcasts, you can listen to this one. So we'll talk to you next week. Take care.
Thank you.